Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Just As Conversation, right here on Usala Radio, with your...
Hello, welcome once again to Justice Conversations from the Ivory Tower to the Street with your hosts, Luis Suave Gonzalez, Dr. Brian O'Neill, and we're joined in the studio today with our guest, Reverend Colee from the Broad Street Ministries. And first of all, if you could tell us, Reverend, what does the Broad Street Ministries do?
We do a lot. We are simultaneously a nonprofit worshiping community at the same time. We, on the large scale, Monday through Friday, offer meals for about 350, 400 people every single day. And they're beautiful meals. We have professional chefs who make them. They make things like Jamaican jerk chicken with mango chutney and beautiful things like that. And then other services like we provide a mailing address for anyone who's looking for it. About 3,000 people in the city use that. We have an on-site primary care doctor. We provide personal care items and clothing for folks. And then we have a worshiping community that meets every Sunday at 4 p.m. And it's a lot of folks who kind of maybe otherwise wouldn't feel comfortable in the church world. And we are just one big organization opening our doors, trying to, whoever walks through them, offer that welcome and see what we can do for them. So that's us.
How many people would you estimate you serve a month?
A month? What do you think?
A week?
Well, so every day, so a year we know we serve between 6,000 and 7,000 people. Every day we serve about 380 meals. And so we see people working with our concierge, our social workers, people working with our medical team. So people come in for all different reasons. But yeah, we're connected to a pretty large sector of Philadelphia.
I think a lot of people's image of an organization is basically religiously based, and you're saying it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to the radio show that you did with Jeremy James a few months back, and they were talking about how, in our name is Broad Street Ministry. And so that recognizes that there is kind of this religious background to it, but I think that those theological values are being played out in a way where it's not expecting people to make an act of faith, that like we can be living out the gospel without expecting people to conform to a particular set of beliefs, that like in fact we best show like reverence to our sense of the divine by welcoming people wherever they are in their life and not expecting them to change because of what we think or believe. Yeah,
I think the stereotype used to be, you have to hear a sermon for your supper kind of idea.
Absolutely.
So like there's strings attached to this, and I think that word, just ministry, some people have some stereotypes in it. It puts them off if they don't know about it, and they're just not, they think it's some religious orientation.
Yeah.
And that they're
we're trying to trick you, get the meal, and really we're trying to save your souls at the end of the day. Where I think instead there's a recognition that like if one of us is going hungry, then like none of us are saved. None of us are in a good place. Like we are saved as a community, and we need to uplift one another. We originally went, so my background story is I started worshiping at Broad Street when I was in seminary back in 2009. And when I went there, they would do communion every single week in worship and then have a meal afterwards, and kind of saw those meals as an extension of the communion table. It's a place where there are no barriers for entry. You don't have to believe anything, do anything. You don't have to be a particularly good person to be welcomed at the communion table, and it's the same with the other tables. But we stopped doing that because we didn't want to send this message that you have to be a person of faith or make an act of faith to receive a meal. And so we tried to make a bit of separation from that while still having the same theological belief that every time we serve a meal Monday through Friday, it's an extension of this communion table where everyone's welcomed and where we're connected to one another. So I think we've learned and grown along the way. Broad Street definitely opened in 2005 with no expectation of it becoming what it is now, but it's changed because we've had conversations with people who walk through our doors and said, what do you actually need? What do you want? What could we be doing better? And that's how we've evolved to where we are today.
Now, what is the complement of your staff? I know we got one of your staff members right here to my left, which is Suave, and I was curious about what other people who are there and what they do.
Yeah, so we have amazing different teams. So we have a concierge team, which are people who are caseworkers, social workers. We call them concierge because we want to have this hospitality model, and we also recognize that people are not cases to be worked. People are instead, they know what's best for them, and how can we guide them and offer and direct them to the things that they're looking for. So we have a great team led up by Jeremy James doing that. We have a reentry team, which is growing. Michael McKee heads that up, and so those are for folks coming in who are returning citizens from incarceration, us helping them get things like clothing and an ID and connected to staffing opportunities. We have an amazing kitchen team, like 3 professional chefs making these beautiful meals. We have a de-escalation team, which Louie is a part of, and their role is really to kind of walk alongside people. They're so much more than security. They're really social workers in their own way, and that they help people who are in crisis, who are experiencing trauma in some way, to kind of get back to a place where they can calm down and are feeling safe, and other people around them are feeling safe as well. And then we have folks who help us raise money in our development team. We have folks who keep it all organized. We have a guy named Dwayne who's been there since the beginning, who keeps our crumbling building from falling apart, duct tapes it back together. And so, we have people doing amazing work all across the organization.
So what was the total number of staff that you have?
I think we have about 28 full-time people and about 3 part-time people. About 31 some people on staff right now.
Plus volunteers, I assume.
And then our volunteers are in the thousands. We'll have 20 people doing our meal service, and then people doing our mail service, our clothing closet. So we'll have thousands of people every year helping and volunteering.
And our staff is growing because we just hired a few people for the winter cafe.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of the program where people are going to be able to sleep in the building, for the winter months. So we hire people for that.
Do you have some former clients that come back and do volunteer work?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. We certainly have people who come back and they're just appreciative of the ways that we were able to support them when they were in transition or in crisis, and so they come back and volunteer. We had a gentleman the other day on Sunday dropped off like a jar of pennies that he had been collecting and gave it to us as I'm grateful for the work that you do. So people find different ways to kind of give back and appreciate. And I think that's a beautiful model. There's got to be something beyond just this charity model of we're helping people, we're serving people. The people who are coming in have expertise too, and they know how to do things. They know how to, they're connected with certain people. So the more that we can bring people in and recognize that they are just as much kind of a host to us and have resources to connect us and other people, helps it from it becoming this us versus them mentality.
Now, Reverend, besides donations, do you get any government funding?
So the only government funding we get right now is through this overnight cafe. Probably about 12 years ago, the city of Philadelphia came to us because we're in this prime location, a few blocks from Center City, across from the Kimmel Center, saying, hey, would you open up an overnight cafe? We can't call it a shelter because we're not zoned to be a shelter. We can't provide cots, but it's a warming space, a place where about 75 people a night can come in. If we're having a code blue, it can go up to 100 people. And it's just a space to make sure that people are not on the streets in freezing times, and the city helps kind of fund that, and that's about the only government funding we receive right now. Mm-hmm.
Wow. What is your budget about, the yearly budget?
I think it's about $2.6 million, and trying to grow things. Like one thing we really want to grow is an ID program. There's so many folks who come in, whether they're returning citizens or folks who are experiencing homelessness, who having that ID is the thing that helps them get the housing, get the job, get the next thing that they need so that they can kind of stabilize their life and move on. So we're working on that. We're trying to see if not only some other funders can support us, but maybe if the governor of PA would think about waiving the fee of IDs at our location. So we're growing every year and trying to think of new ideas to be able to support the community that comes in.
Excellent. Educationally, do you guys have any connections with any local schools or universities?
We've done programs with all different kinds of folks. We definitely have like Temple nursing that comes in. I think Drexel med students also do some work with us.
Jefferson.
Jefferson, that's right.
University of the Arts. They do art tables. I mean, it depends, but the season and the ability that the students have. But they definitely have a lot of educational component to it.
Sure. Do you do much referral to other agencies for people if they have, for example, drug dependency issues or something to that effect, or mental health issues?
Yeah, we have some mental health support there currently. We collaborate with Philly Fight, and they're the ones who work with us to provide an on-site primary care doctor. We've kind of expanded to have a behavioral health person on staff as well. And so we do some of that in-house, but in terms of drug rehabilitation, a number of our concierge folks, they're getting up at 3 a.m. and standing in line with some of our guests so they can get into programs. And so we do some of that outside the referral, but we also have folks who are, showing up and walking alongside them to make sure they don't have to do it alone. We don't just say, go to this space, figure it out. It's more all right, let's do this together so we can get it done.
Because they can be really intimidating, going to a new place you don't know and dealing with unfamiliar people and the bureaucratic red tape.
Unquestionably. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes me think about just the word compassion, which is, like a lot of organizations, is a value, but like passion comes from this root of pain, of suffering, and calm being with. Like, what does it look like to walk alongside with people in whatever the trauma they're experiencing, whatever the pain they are with? Not us trying to be these saviors by any way, but like to know people are not alone in that and like walk through the system with them. We have concierge folks who, and I've done this as well, when guests have come in and needed support in court cases, like we'll show up and offer that support to them, just having that physical presence, helping them walk through that system as well.
And it's also, I want to say that most of the staff at Broad Street Ministry are trauma informed. So, we could kind of tell when somebody's going through something, coming into our space, because a lot of us are trauma informed. And I think that's the beauty of the organization, that, like you said, we meet people where they at in life, but we also are able to identify certain things that allow us to provide the right resources.
I think it's about time for us to take a pause.
So we're going on a commercial break right now. You're listening to A Justice Conversation on Usala Radio.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfies. Nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's put a ride home.
Sometimes the things we do or say can make others feel hurt, excluded, or isolated. Everything you say and do creates an impact.
How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Because of you, someone's entire life can change. You don't have to be a superhero to have a positive impact.
Friends?
Friends.
Welcome back to a Justice Conversation on Ursula Radio. Before we move on, we want to send a big shout out to Westchester University for making this happen. If it wasn't for their support, we could not do this show. To all the staff up there, we need your support again.
Reverend, I wanted to ask you about, we should mention we're here with Reverend Laura Colee from the Broad Street Ministries. What do you find to be the most challenging aspect of your job?
I think working, I don't know. I think so many people who walk through our doors, whether they're staff or guests or congregants or visitors, people are just hurting, and people, you don't really know everything that people are going through. And so it's this unique privilege to be able to hear people's stories. And I think one of the hardest things that folks working at Broad Street have to learn is, like, how do we be intimately present with people with whatever they're going through, but also not take it home with us so that we have to carry this ourselves in some way. I mean, people from all walks of life ending up, wanting food, needing whatever support. Someone who used to be a sous chef, had a health disability, and now, after he pays his bills, he has about $100 left over to spend on food, and he comes to Broad Street because it's the one of the meals a week that he doesn't have to, eat macaroni and cheese and ketchup. Folks who have undergraduate degrees and who are just struggling with housing issues anyway. It's amazing. People are carrying trauma with them. No one has it together. And I think that's beautiful to recognize that we're all kind of a mess and that we'll just figure it out along the way. But it's hard. People are in a lot of pain and need to know that they're not alone and that they're deeply loved and that they mattered, even though a system doesn't treat them like they do.
Yeah, because a lot of government assistance comes with a dose of humiliation.
Absolutely.
You have to do some groveling. You have to prove that you're worthy of the help.
Yeah.
And it can be very demeaning to people to go through that.
Absolutely.
And I think that the energy that takes, a lot of people just don't want to sell their souls, so to speak, so they just suffer instead.
Absolutely.
They don't reason the fact that when I was doing okay, I was paying into the system, therefore it's time to collect. They don't think that way. They just think, they're embarrassed.
Absolutely.
That they've got to that point.
That's the thing about our space. When you come in our space, we don't want you to feel embarrassed.
Right.
We have this model where everybody has a space on our table. So it's like we welcome you home. There's nothing to be embarrassed. And we treat you with dignity because that's how everybody deserves to be treated. Mm-hmm. So when you're in our space, you could come and get a meal and get some clothes and get some medical attention, or talk to the pastor, or talk to one of the case managers and anybody, and still keep your dignity. Yeah. And we always try. That's one of the things we practice every day. Radical hospitality, right. Which is while you're in this space, you keeping your dignity. You don't have to give up your dignity to just get services from us. Yeah. And a lot of the guests feel that because that's the only place that you probably allowed to do that.
Right.
While you're traveling the city and looking for help. We don't try to give you the runaround, well, come back tomorrow. We try to take care of your needs right there on the spot.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's why if we don't have it, we tell you we don't have that, but we have this.
So making a personal connection.
Right, because
important.
I see a lot of guys coming home and they come to Broad Street for IDs. Mm-hmm. We don't have the capability to give them state IDs, but we could send you to City Hall and get a municipal ID, which allow you to get all your benefits. It gives you a head start. And they appreciate it because they don't have to come in begging. They don't have to come in crying. We understand.
Right. Yeah, I think that's another issue with some government agencies is the personal touch. It's more like you are being dealing with faceless bureaucrats, and there's such turnover you don't have the same caseworker for more than, maybe 6 months if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So it's always a new story. You have to tell your whole story all over again, and it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing to me how much we as a society demonize people who are poor. We make it we make moral assumptions about people. I've been thinking a lot about. I just finished and been having conversations about the book Waking Up White, and for so many folks in America, their parents or their grandparents received a GI Bill that allowed them to get education and housing if they were white. Most 2% of the housing actually went to people of color. And so there are ways in which our system work to elevate a particular group of people, and now we're so demonizing people who are looking for government assistance, where so much of white affluent wealth has been passed down because of this handout that happened for them. It was an affirmative action program for white folks. And we don't think about the ways in which, if anything ever happened to me, I have a family support system who could take me in, and I'd have that. But there are so many people who, either because of connections with their family, maybe they identify as LGBTQ and their family wouldn't welcome them back in. Maybe their family doesn't have the support system to be able to welcome them in. That they're not offered that support network. So why can't we be that support network? Why? Of course, we should take care of people in crisis, because we're not crisis proof. This could happen to us as well. Yeah.
Well, I think one thing victim blaming accomplishes is that it convinces you that it can't happen to me.
Mm.
If I can blame you for your plight, then I can isolate the fear I might have that could be me someday.
Yeah.
So, because it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never let myself get in that position.
Absolutely.
So I think that's also part of the psychological reason people do that, because they want to
feel safe
and secure. So if they can blame that guy in the street, oh, he must be a drug addict or whatever.
But that's the thing. When you work at a place like Broad Street, you learn real fast that everybody that's on the street are not drug addicts.
Right. Oh yeah.
Everybody that's on the street are not because they was addicted, and you got people that just fell on hard times.
Yeah.
And end up in the street, and that's just the case.
Mm-hmm.
People that never done drugs before, people that's never been incarcerated. I used to think the same thing. I used to see people on the street like, man, he's young, he could work. Why is he asking me for a quarter?
Mm-hmm.
But when you start working at a place like Broad Street Ministry, you realize that a lot of people have a lot of trauma in their life.
Yeah.
That prevent them from getting jobs and houses and and getting in certain places that me and you could get in because of the misconception that other people have. Mm-hmm. You learn that real quick. So no, people out there, everybody that's on the street is not on drugs. They not. Mm-hmm. I met people down Broad Street, man, that have these conversations. You be like, you forget, I'm talking to the right person or I'm talking to a professor.
Yeah.
Because those are the type of people. Then you start reminding yourself these are human beings that had a life before they fell on hard times. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of them, it's hard to come in to a place like Broad Street and just want to ask for a pair of socks. Some of them just need a pair of gloves. That's all they want.
Right.
And it's amazing when I walk down the street and I'm down Center City going home, or down, because I live on Broad Street, and you meet and you see some of the guests that come down there and they remember you, and they want to, if I get into an argument with somebody, you see some of the guests want to interfere, and I'm like, no, fall back, because they get to know you, they get to trust you, and that's because we treat them with respect and dignity. So the people out there, when you see somebody asking for a little spare change, stop being so cheap and give it to them. For real, because today might be them, but tomorrow might be you.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, I love Pope Francis. Someone asked him about, what about people who are asking for money? And he was like, give it to them. Like, what do you waste your money on? Like, you know how much I waste my money on so many stupid things? Like, who's to say that theirs is, any different that I'm going to waste my money on? So I appreciate that mindset. It keeps me down to earth. It's like, no, why do I need to make a judgment about how they're spending that money,
But some people have advocated that you should give to programs rather than...
Sure.
And, well, I don't know that people really do that.
Well, let me say something on that,
They
Doc.
might claim they're going to do that, but they end up giving to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But that's sometimes the excuse that they run.
I'll say this, right? I agree to a certain extent that we should support programs and nonprofits like Broad Street Ministry. But sometimes we got to give the money to where it could be more effective. Which is, if we see somebody laying out in the cold, why not use some of that money to put that person up for 2 or 3 days in a hotel? Instead of going through all the red tapes they got to go through in the city to get a place.
Right.
Because the city don't have enough place
Yeah.
for the people that's out in the street.
Yeah.
Well, more radical idea, which has been attempted in some places, is to simply buy them housing.
Wow.
And, let them... set them up for some months' rent.
Yeah.
And give them some job opportunities.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more actually sense in the long run, because the temporary housing is actually more expensive because people keep rolling in and out of it.
Sure.
There's no stability. But talking about a stable, that is shown to be much more effective and cost effective.
Not only that,
but people have a hard time with that because they feel it's too much of a commitment to giving away something.
Mm-hmm.
They're okay with giving away some temporary fix.
Yeah.
But not something with more permanence.
Yeah.
Well, but let's get more radical than that. Me and Laura was talking on the way back. Why not those that could do it open our doors to people in need?
Yeah.
Not only returning citizens, but people in need.
Yeah.
Why not? That's a challenge. Thanksgiving's coming up. Why don't we all take 2 or 3 people randomly from that we see in the street? Come on, you come eat with me. Start with that. Because sometimes it really bothers me when I see people in the holidays. They want to be, here's $1. Only in the holidays. How about the other days of the year?
Right.
Stop being a hypocrite. To me, that's being a hypocrite. You're in a holiday spirit, now you want to buy me a little sandwich.
Right.
But I'm in the street all year long. I'd rather that you pay for a hotel or a motel where I can spend a couple of days indoors in a nice bed than you being sorry, feeling sorry for me and buying me a sandwich.
Yeah.
That's not going to cut it. Because if you ask some of the people that come into Broad Street, they're not coming there for just a meal. They coming there because they need a place to stay. They coming there because they know they could trust and talk to our staff. They coming there because they feel love.
Right.
They feel love. And if you're not the type of person that could show some empathy and compassion, then you have no business working at a place like Broad Street Ministry at all, because you're going to get called out on it. If you're not a person that can work with a diverse community, transgender, LGBT, you can't work down there. I'll be honest with you. You can't work down there. Because you're not going to cut it. You're not going to cut it. So, and I say this because I see the homeless population as returning citizens population. We're in the same boat. We can't get in certain places. People look at us and they automatically make a judgment. So we got a lot of the same discrimination, right? That's why I love working at Broad Street, because when you come down there, whether you're a returning citizen or you're in the street, we treat you the same way. We give you the same treatment, the same love. If you want a one-on-one with Laura, you could do that. And then on Sundays, you come down there, and then you get to see the community that you don't normally see from Monday to Friday, sitting side by side with our guests. And in some cases, sharing food. That's the beauty of it, that we don't turn nobody away. Nobody. We not like these other churches that you can't come here. You know, y'all know who y'all are. You know the preachers out there. We welcome everybody. Because if we gonna say we practice radical hospitality, then we got to live by that motto.
Sure.
You just can't be radical hospitality inside the building and outside. Don't touch me. You know, and I learned that when I first started working there, that the guests will remember you. You think they don't, they watching you like you watching them. And when you walking down Broad Street and you downtown, then you gonna bump into one of them. Those are our neighbors. So, you know, treat them like you want to be treated.
I've been trying to get Louis to come preach for me. He tells me he can't preach, but I think we're ready.
I think we need to take a pause, don't we?
No, we still.
Oh, we don't? Okay.
Oh, yeah, we are. Listen, my bad, y'all. I see y'all there on Facebook. Thank you. You know, we got a great engineer here that's probably going to edit some of this stuff, but we got to go on a commercial break. You listening to a Justice Conversation on Usala Radio.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome back to Justice Conversations from the Ivory Tower of the Street with Dr. Brian O'Neill, Luis Suave Gonzalez, and Reverend Laura Colee from the Broad Street Ministries. We were just talking about the once-a-years or the once-a-6-monthers, you know, the people that maybe will work in the soup kitchen on Thanksgiving Day, and I paid my debt, and then they think everything's cool after that. And, of course, unless you can eat like a year's worth of food on that day, it's not going to probably fix all your troubles.
Yeah, it's amazing how much folks either give to charity or they volunteer, and it's just to assuage the sense of guilt. But like, what I love about Broad Street is our focus on hospitality, and hospitality. It inherently demands risk, both for the guest and the host. You know, if you let someone into your house, there's an inherent risk that you're going to say, I'm going to put that risk aside and welcome that person in. If you're a guest, there's a risk walking in. You don't know what you're walking into. And there's a recognition that there's an important role for both of those players, and they both have something to give. And so if your giving doesn't risk anything of yourself, it doesn't ask anything of yourself, it's just something that you can kind of throw away on a whim, and your life is not actually being put up at stake. You know, actually hosting someone who's in crisis for 2 months, for 3 months, for 6 months, that demands something of your life. And that's not a possibility that everyone has, but I do feel like we're all in some way called to risk something of our comfort and of our life, and not just pat ourselves on the back for the work that we're doing, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing about the risk-taking is that it takes a lot of humility for the person to seek help in the first place. That's a big part of the risk, I would think, to put yourself out there and be that vulnerable. I think that takes a lot, for especially somebody that hasn't really been in that spot.
Yeah.
It's something sudden that happened to them, so to suddenly have to rely on somebody else that they've never had to do that before.
Yeah.
It can be a big shot to your ego.
Yeah. Yeah, that the act of just showing up itself is brave. And to say, like, as people walk through our doors, what does it mean to welcome them, saying, like, no, this isn't just someone else in need, but this is someone who said, today I'm going to get what I need, and I'm going to stand up for myself and advocate for myself. Like, how do we acknowledge that and give them recognition for the hard work that they're doing just by showing up? Like, that's a discipline in and of itself. And that changes the way we think about people who are trying to get somewhere else in their life.
Yeah, even if you're doing something like using food stamps, you get used to people passing judgment on what kind of food you're buying.
Yeah.
Or getting dirty looks from people in line. They're scrutinizing your shopping stuff. Because I'm out paying for that. That kind of outrage. So they're scrutinizing whether you're spending the money wisely.
Sure.
And so there's all this stuff attached to all that.
I say to them people, I remember coming home from prison, and I had a food stamp card. I go to the dollar store. I was amazed that they had dollar store and I could buy everything for $1. And people was looking at me like, what is you doing? I'm like, I'm buying food.
Yeah.
And I'm arrogant, so I'm like, if you don't like what I'm buying, then take me shopping to one of your fancy shopping centers and buy me what you think I should have.
Yeah.
Other than that, step out of line. You in my way.
Yeah.
There was no shame in my game, but I always tell the people, don't forget where you come from. A lot of us at one time, we was down here before we got up here. But when we get up here, we forget that we had to wear the same pair of shoes for a year or maybe 2 years. We forget that a lot of us ain't had the food in the house. We had to eat the peanut butter and jelly sandwich or just butter on the bread. We forget that kind of stuff. Because today we up here, I could cook a full meal today. Don't forget. Don't forget that the neighbor that you walking by and looking strange, that was you. That's how people was looking at you before you made it. That's why I never forget. That's why I always make it my business. If I'm out and about and I see somebody, hey, it don't matter to me. Material things don't matter to me. Because I come from a place where I had nothing. Where I wear the same clothes for 20 years. Yes, people, I wear browns for 31 years. And in some cases, I had the same jacket for a decade. Because if you gave it away, you probably couldn't get it back. So I know what it is. That's why I never let my job or my success or anything get to my head. Because the same way I got it, I could lose it. That's how easy it is. And people should be ashamed of themselves when they walk by somebody and just give them the dirty look because you got a coat and they don't. They should be ashamed of themselves. Because America, like I always say, we call ourselves a Christian society, but we don't act like it.
Yeah.
Only on holidays. When you're allowed to go get some turkey, somewhere and just go. Hey, take a bag, take the extras. Like that's going to heal the problem. Let's stop putting a Band-Aid on the problem and fix the problem. And the problem is that we are a society that put values on material things.
Well, it goes back to when the government started making designations of whether you're a worthy poor person or an unworthy poor person.
Sure.
And that still exists today. So, to be able to blindly give help governmentally doesn't really exist. You have to prove that you're worthy. And so there's judgment attached to all the help. It's always with judgment.
Yeah.
And that is not what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to be no strings attached kind of thing.
Well, I like what Louis is talking about. I think there are different reasons why we offer this hospitality, this welcome to people wherever they are in their life. There's the moral reason, the recognition that like either I've been there before or I'm not immune to it and I could be there one day. I could be wandering just like other folks are. I think there is a theological reason that we recognize that every person we interact with has the divine image within them, and that every time we interact with someone else, that is our opportunity to interact with the divine. And I think that there's a really practical reason, too, why we offer care and support for people, which is like we as a society want to feel safe. And we think that we feel safe by having larger fences and better security systems. But what actually makes you safe is by knowing your neighbor, by trusting them, by knowing they have your back, by asking them to watch your bike and knowing that it won't get stolen. So like these things get played out one way or another. Like if we are not offering food support to people, then we're going to be offering medical support to people. Like one way or another, society is going to be paying for this. Like, so why do we attach such a moral judgment on people? Yeah, it's a way for people to feel better about themselves compared to other people. But we're all capable of being in those places, and we're all possible of, I don't know. It's our ways of interacting with the divine as well. I don't know. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, how dare you buy that filet
And let me say this real quick, Doc. And let's not forget that just a few years ago, we had a crisis in America where people was losing their houses, where people went broke, where people end up in the same spot that we give the crazy look today. Because I know a few people like that. Lost houses, job, and everything, and they became homeless. And they tell you today that was the best thing that ever happened to them.
Sure.
The best thing, because they humbled them. Because when you got everything, you feel like you on top. When you ain't got nothing, it humbles you. Especially if you had it all at one time and now you ain't got nothing. I know people like that.
Sure.
I know politicians that was on top of their game. One mistake, they end up in prison. And now they back where they started at. We all know people like that.
Yeah.
So we should not, by no reason, look at anybody crazy because they sleeping in the street. Or because they ain't dressing like me or you. If anything, we should go back in our closet and give a couple of extra shoes that we got that we probably don't need, so they could be, half-half, so they won't have to walk in the car. But yet, we just want to give the summer clothes up because I'm going to the winter time and I don't need them. I'm gonna give you this. Come on, man. Come on, man. Bring some coats. Bring some shoes. Bring some gloves.
Yeah.
I don't want nothing for Christmas. You know what I want? I just want to go out in the street, give out some hats and some gloves. Join me. Join us, You don't have to do it yourself. Bring it down Broad Street. We give it away for you. Believe me, we have plenty of people that need coats and shoes, gloves, hats. But do something. Don't just sit there like, oh, I'm going to enjoy these holidays and come on, man, stop. And I'm not coming over for dinner. So y'all ain't got to worry about it.
I love that mentality. My husband hates on me because I don't love Christmas, because it is. Everyone just shows up and they want to feel this like nostalgic feeling of excitement, and suddenly they're feeling like they can offer charity in some way. But like, how do we be there for people in and out, day after day, week after week, year after year, and not just in a time when we feel bubbly? That's the real work of making this world a better place. It's not just during a month or during a season.
And I'm not a religious person. I'm really not. I'm not the guy that preach. But I do believe that we live in a society where we have too much and we want to hold on to it.
Yeah.
And we become cheap.
Yeah.
We become selfish with material things because I pay $100 for it, but I'm not going to give it away even though I don't have no use for it. To me, that's being selfish.
Yeah.
Because when we die, we can't take nothing
Yeah.
with us at all. Nothing.
Yeah.
That's they're going to give your things away anyway. Believe me. So you might as well give it away while you're alive and feel good about it, man. But we need to stop acting like we saving humanity once a year. This is a 365-day job. When you see people sleeping in cardboards in the street, that's when it really hit homes. And then we talking about young people. I went to prison for 31 years. I came out, I seen my mind is still blown away to see the amount of young people, 15, 16, 17, 18, homeless, sleeping in the streets. That blew my mind. And I still can't get a grip on it. And I don't blame them. I blame my community for allowing that. That's who I blame. I blame city council and all these little council people up in City Hall that want to act like they're saving the city on holidays for allowing that. If you go down City Hall right now, you see a bunch of people. And what they doing, they're putting up the little fancy, Christmas stuff they put up and running away. You can't be here right now.
Yeah.
That's what they do. They try to put a Band-Aid. They look for places like Broad Street Ministry to fix the problem for them when it's a community problem.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. You listening to a Justice Conversation on Usala Radio.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, and she convinced me to continue my education.
No one receives a diploma alone.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Our hearts are made stronger by how we treat others.
Put her there.
The light you share can impact those around you, but so can the darkness.
Later, twerps. Did Pete saying mean things bother you?
So when you reach out to another person, take a moment to consider how they will feel and let your heart be the key to making a difference. Because of you, someone's entire day, year, or even life can change.
In every heart, there's hope.
Welcome back to Justice Conversations with Dr. Brian O'Neill, Luis Suave Gonzalez, and our guest, Reverend Colee from the Broad Street Ministries. And I wondered whether, if you could look at your agency 5 years from now, what would you like to see change, or what would you like to see easier or improved?
Well, there are a lot of things that we do at Broad Street where we're trying to offer hospitality, but they're not the most hospitable way to do it. For example, we could have our clothing closet open 5 days a week, 7 days a week, and we still wouldn't meet the need. We're currently only offering it 2 days a week. We do a system where people sign up, make appointments, and there are a lot of ways in which that's not trauma aware and that's not as welcoming as possible. Being able to offer the services so people don't have to come back and wait a couple of days, I think it is something we absolutely have to move towards. And I think that as I'm thinking about the reentry program as that grows, I was talking with Louie as we were driving down that there's a real opportunity for either worshiping communities, and I only say worshiping communities because they're just places that gather anyway. Like a lot of community organizers start with synagogues and ethical societies and mosques and churches because that's where people are in the first place. But what would it look like for people who are coming in as returning citizens, and that for those communities to not even offer a mentorship program, but just have someone who walks alongside them as they're figuring out their next steps. I think it would be beautiful if the worshiping community that's at Broad Street could walk alongside people who walk through our doors and just know that they're not alone in figuring out, like, hey, I need to figure out where this office is. I need to get connected to a job opportunity, that there's a whole community that's behind them, that they don't have to do this on their own. So I'd love for that collaboration to happen in the future. I don't know. Well, anything else you'd love to see, Louis?
I mean, I think that Broad Street is becoming like the it program in the city right now. You know, now that they got a reentry program, we're starting to see more and more guys, man and woman, coming down there for services. And I think if we get the ID program up and running, where they could come get their ID there, like, it'd be a unique program because we already serve food, clothes, personal care items, medical, mail. I mean, we have all that in one location.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to go from here to there. You come get everything in one spot. And if we get the mail system, the photograph system going up, I think that will be it. But we need the support of people. We need people to, you know, open their wallets. You know, we haven't get to the stage with the city or the state would say we're gonna waive them fees to give people coming home from prison IDs.
Yeah.
That costs money. And we do what we could do.
We should explain why an ID is so vital to like a starting step.
I mean,
and not having one is a barrier to all kinds of services, right? And even
ID,
getting a job.
An ID, you can't get a job.
Right.
You can't get the city benefits. You can't get medical benefits. You can't even get a job interview. Can't even get in certain places without an ID. Yeah. Certain buildings you need an ID to get in. You know, and most of the time when you spend decades in any institution, you don't have no IDs, no identification. Yeah. It's like you don't exist.
Yeah.
So you have to have that should be the number one item that we should be able to provide people coming from any institution, which is an ID, birth certificate, social security card. And that would, and you'd be surprised that when somebody get an ID, they pretty much could go handle the rest on their own.
Yeah. Right.
All they need is I got to get an ID.
Well, that's, you know, I was out in California to do some research on Homeboy Industries, and one of the guys took me to the halfway house where he had resided, and I did some interviews there, and they had the same problem. Yeah. There was guys sitting there for 6 months because of the ID problem, not because they couldn't be self-sufficient, but that they couldn't get access to that basic. So that's a nationwide problem.
Yeah, and
we release people without them having that basic tool.
Yeah. Well, and I think for folks who are undocumented to have a sense of safety and to receive services and care as well, that's why it's been really successful in a number of cities creating a municipal ID program where, folks can use those cards to get the same access and into the same places, but not have to feel like their life is threatened and their families' lives are threatened by doing it.
You know, but on a deeper level, I look at it from a whole different perspective when it comes to returning citizens, because Pennsylvania is one of the few states where returning citizens can vote right after they release from prison. And if you look at it, I'm looking at it from a conspiracy theory now, which is if we prevent these people, this class of people from getting IDs, that means they can't register to vote.
Yeah. And, you know
and if you can't register to vote, you can't let your voice be heard.
Yeah.
And in the city of Philadelphia, we talking about 375,000 ex-offenders. They are qualified to vote. So just imagine if all of us have IDs and somebody in our ears like register to vote. You could come to Broad Street Ministry and open a mailbox and get registered to vote on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our zip code is technically the largest contingency in the Commonwealth of people who are eligible to vote, which is pretty amazing.
What I'm saying is that I'm prone to believe that a lot of people know what they're doing when they prevent people from getting IDs.
Right.
Or prolong the process.
Sure. And another part to that is, for the census information to get representatives, they count people in prison. Right? They can't vote.
Right.
But they're counting them as part of their
census.
They get representation.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's based on population demographics.
Yeah.
So how does that fare to count people that have no voice as part of your coalition of... It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And plus an ID, man, an identification card make you feel like you somebody, man.
Sure.
Like, I remember I came home with my prison ID.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that. I wanted my own state ID.
Yeah.
And I got a state ID, but it had brown. They got me with brown clothes. And I fought. I don't want that. I want to feel like I'm part of my community.
Yeah.
And I fought it till I got an ID with street clothes. So I know the importance of an identification card.
Right.
But I also know the value it has. I also know that for certain people, it's best that a class of people don't have identification, because then we don't have to let them vote. They can't even register. So, it's a whole lot of components that play into it.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's immoral for the Department of Corrections to be releasing people without IDs. I mean, that's just, to me, it's crazy. It's just like you're just freeing up space, but you're not really helping. You're setting up this person for a failure, essentially.
To return back to prison.
Right.
Because if I get stopped, if I'm walking down Center City and I get stopped by the police and I don't have no identification at all, I'm subjected to be handcuffed and put behind somebody's car, and to they running whatever it is that they do.
Yeah.
You got to have some form of ID.
Well, that's very basic. I mean, you're talking about job training, all kinds of other things you might be getting inside. It's irrelevant if you don't come out with the ID.
Yeah.
That's like such a basic thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So it just blows my mind that isn't automatic.
Yeah, but this is what a lot of these people that are doing re-entry don't understand. That most of we sit behind these tables and try to make decisions for people when we don't know nothing. Because if really the most important thing that a person needs coming home from prison is an ID card. And they tell you, I don't want a house, I can't get none of that without my ID.
Sure.
So I tell the people in reentry, like I told them this morning when I spoke at Temple, stop trying to act like you know what you're doing when you ain't never even been in a prison.
Yeah.
Stop trying to act like you care about this issue when you don't even want people returning citizens around your office. You in the office in the back, but your front desk, they the one that got to deal with us. You disconnected. But yet you want to make decisions on what I need.
Yeah.
Say, you don't know what I need? Because you never ask.
Mm-hmm.
You never ask. And I always tell people that work in reentry, take a trip to the prison.
Yeah.
Go visit the prisons. Hang out in the prisons for a day or two. And I guarantee you come back with a different perspective. And unfortunately, most of the people that go to the prisons that provide services that matter is the religious community.
Right.
And sometimes even the religious community, y'all know who y'all are. Y'all go into the prisons, but y'all don't want to be next to us when we come out.
Yeah.
And that's not a personal attack on nobody. That's just how it is. I know people that go to church in the prison. I love you, but when you come out here, like, I don't want my neighbor to see me with you. And that's something we need to work on. This is why I invite everybody to come to Broad Street Ministry on Sundays so you can be in the community with the community and see what our guests are not monsters. Our guests are just human beings that want the same thing that you want, to live a happy life.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I got to say, people. Go ahead, Doc. You know, I see the comments on there.
Well, and like, what does it look like to treat people as experts of their own lives? Like, instead of me saying, hey, you know what, I think you should do this, trust that people know their body, they know their situation, they know their life. Like, ask them a conversation. Our entire mail program came out of some guy saying, hey, can I have a package delivered here? And we said, sure. And then someone else said, can I have a package delivered here? We said, sure. Right. And then there were 15 people, and now we have 3,000 people. Right. It's just from...
say that again. How many people receive mail on Broad Street?
3,000 people receive mail currently at Broad Street Ministry.
That's the same thing Father Boyle told us. He said that all of our programs evolved from them telling us what they wanted and what they needed, not us saying, you need this.
You know what?
It's got to be the other way around.
When I look at Broad Street Ministry, I think about homeboys industry. Mine is the business part.
Right.
But everything else is like the same components, everything. And the beauty of it is that it's people that you're probably never going to hear about that's doing the work. People that don't care to be on the radio, I care. People that don't really want the attention, the spotlight on them, that's doing this work. This is why I invited Laura to come to the work, because I think they need to be highlighted in some way. People need to know that the people that's doing this work, they're doing it because they care.
Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time. We should definitely also thank our sponsor, Westchester University, and Dr. Laura Colee for coming in here, Broad Street Ministries, for being our guest this afternoon. I guess it'll be in the afternoon, the morning, I forget when this airs. It'll be on Tuesday and Thursday. And thank you also, Suave.
A big shout out, man, to Laura, the whole staff at Broad Street Ministry, Jeremy, Dwayne, Shahid, Leah, Brenna, TC, Steven, Charles. Y'all cook wonderful meals. And everybody else that I forgot to mention, don't blame it on me, blame it on my mind. But we love all of y'all, all the volunteers that come up there on Thursdays to make sure them clothes are tight and fit. Everybody that volunteer to give out mail and food, we love y'all. Always remember, there's nothing wrong with practicing a little bit of radical hospitality. You're listening to a Justice Conversation on Usala Radio.
Our music by Moby, our producer, Edwin. Thanks again.
And this show is sponsored, again, by Westchester University.
Thank you.
I think that's a wrap.